the last week is anything to go by, we have to continue to expect the unexpected.
Well done, Brisbane Heat. They break a 3-game losing streak.
It's been close finish after close finish, which shows just how tight it is.
What a comeback, what a win for the Melbourne Renegades.
Who's surging towards finals and who's left their run too late? Pete Handscomb joins us to discuss, and Nathan McSweeney from the Heat. He is our special guest. This is The Surge. G'day everyone, welcome to another edition of The Surge. I'm Adam White. Now, co-host this week is Pete Handscomb. Pete, welcome.
Thanks, Whitey. Good to be back.
There is so much to talk about, so many dramatic results over the last few days. Also, unfortunately, a couple of rain-affected matches as well. In fact, games that didn't happen at all. But I want to go back to what we saw the other night with the Renegades because your teammate, Will Sutherland, absolutely dominated the game with both ball and particularly with bat with what he did at the end to keep the Renegade season rolling, to keep them in finals calculations. They had injury issues to deal with, all sorts of things went on. What were you thinking sitting back watching on the couch, Will Sutherland in action?
Well, I mean, what an impressive game from Sutho to come out and basically carry the team on his shoulders. But at 4 for 10, when I was sitting on the couch watching the game, I almost switched it off, thinking, "Oh well, that's just another win to Perth over in the furnace." But that's got to be one of the great wins, I think, for the Renegades to travel over to Perth. I think is one of the tough journeys. We all know that as players, they've got a brutal support over there, and they let you know about it. And they know their conditions really well, and they're a really, really strong side. So for the Renegades to stand up in that situation and win from that position is absolutely incredible. And yeah, like you said, keeps them in final contentions. But going back to Sutho, this could be a bit of a coming of age knock or a coming of age kind of game for him where he does have a lot of belief in himself. That's one of his strengths. But, is this the moment where he goes, damn right, I'm meant to be here. I'm good. I'm good enough for this stage, and I'm going to start, taking down attacks. And we've seen glimpses of it before, and hopefully this isn't just a glimpse. This is the one that propels him, onto bigger and better things. And he really, really leads those Renegades, and they, like I said earlier, jump on his shoulders and away they go.
So for Will, is it cracking the code on how to make runs as opposed to how to bat, or is it just getting himself in more high pressure moments as a batsman to understand how to combat the mental side of the game? I'm interested in what's been missing for us to not see what we saw the other night on a more regular basis.
I think what we're seeing from Will now is clarity in the way he wants to bat. I think as a young player coming through, you get thrown so much information at you from multiple coaches and multiple situations, but he's starting to understand where he can score, what his zones are, what oppositions are going to try and do to him, and how he can combat that. So, he's always been bounced. One of the first times he comes into the crease is one of the first balls is going to be a bouncer. But he knows that now, and he's worked so hard at his game to go away and find a way to combat that. I think what people may not know about Will is that he's gone and hired outside help, people that he trusts, sports science, looking at the analytics of the way he moves and how to get more power into his shots, how to be in a better position to deal with the short ball. And he's really dived deep into this analytics side of it. And we're starting to see it now. And that belief from knowing what he needs to do now, that belief is really starting to come through.
Can you want something too much? Because that's how I feel with Will sometimes, that he wants to do well so much, but he wants to do so well as a leader at times where he can almost try too hard. Is that fair?
I think that's something that is a strength a little bit of
Yeah.
Will as well. So, when we run the 2K time trial, no one beats him, no matter what. He could be 100 metres behind with 500 to go and he will gut run that and be the first one to cross the line. So his ability just to, in any situation, be like, I am the man for this job, is impressive. But I think he's now starting to find the difference, especially as a captain, when it is his turn to be the man that gets the team over the line, but also when to lean on others and when to give someone else the opportunity to finish the job off. And that's coming with experience. That's coming with playing more games and understanding what he can and can't do, but also what his teammates can do as well.
There's always been a talk about him batting higher in the order, and I'm talking about BBL here, leaving the first class stuff to the side. Do you think he has the capability to be more of someone that can bat 4-5 for the Renegades, or is it very much a situation of no, he does very well in the surge later in the innings, he can clear the fence late in innings, we've got a role for him, we don't need to change it just based on one innings?
Yeah, you want to be careful from changing things based off one innings, especially with the power that Salo has. You can compare him a little bit to Tim David.
Mm-hmm.
He could bat 3 or 4, and if he faced all those balls, how amazing it could be. But they still bring him in later on in the game because there's the surge, and he has the ability to clear the pickets from the first ball. I think with Sutho, 7's probably a bit too low for him though. I would like to see him moving up a bit to 5, 6.
Mm-hmm.
Especially with, potentially a few Renegades players leaving. There's that opportunity for him now to control the middle with still the power at the back end to take the surge and control the innings for the Renegades.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it'll all evolve for Will Sutherland. Now, a special guest is Nathan McSweeney. He'll join us a little bit later on. There's so much to talk to Nathan about when it comes to when he first went back to play for the Brisbane Heat, having been dropped from the test side, the role he's playing, and just how the Brisbane Heat are faring at the moment. They're kind of mid-table, but we know what the capability is with this team because they are the defending champions. So Nathan McSweeney will be our special guest a little bit later on. But into the power play, we've kind of touched on it with Will Sutherland, but just from a Renegades point of view, they're a team that has been down in the doldrums for quite a while. Getting that victory in Perth, you talked about the crowd, the incredible experience side that they've got. What does that do for a team and a new coach and a relatively new captain as well to get belief into that group?
Well, I mean, after a win like that, the belief in the group should be incredible, especially coming off, a game that they probably should have won against the Stars.
Yep.
To then, back it up and have the confidence to be like, no, we're good enough to be here and to win this next game. But to win games from 4 for 10 should give you belief that you can win from any position. And when you've got a team that can win from any position, they're so dangerous to play against. I think the best teams that I've played in, you trust the guy that's next to you. So even if you don't get the job done, obviously you're trying as hard as you can to get the job done. But you have that belief and trust in the bloke next to you that if you don't, they'll get it done. And everyone will play their role. We're all going to be nice and clear in what we're doing. And that just helps you just win those close ones, which in a 10-game season now for the Big Bash, every game is counting. And those tight ones are really important.
So do leaders use that as a reference point and say, hey, we've come back from 4 for 10 before to win, we'll be okay this time? Or is it something that's just known by the group? You don't need to remind them?
No, I think every now and then you can remind them. Cricket's a bit of a fickle game where you can forget the highs quite quickly, and there's definitely a lot more lows than there are highs in this game. So having that bravado, I think, as a captain and being like, come on, boys, if we can win from 4 from 10, we can win from 4 from 40, or we can defend 20 off the last 3 overs, or whatever it is, just to have that little reminder for everyone in the team just to switch on that 1% more. And if that's what gets you over the line in the end, then happy days, well played.
You've led Jake Fraser-McGurk before at Victoria. How do they get the best out of him? Do they have to? I mean, they've slightly changed it. He went down to 3 rather than open the batting in the last game against the Scorchers. Is it just keep going, Jake, and fill him with confidence, or how do they get the best out of him? Because he's going to be important, particularly as the overseas players leave shortly for the Renegades.
Yeah, absolutely. Jake's going to be important, and we've seen what he can do against attacks in previous years. And I think for Jake, I think what we can look at is someone like Finn Allen and what he's done. He played his way at the start of the tournament and struggled, but it was only marginal. There was only, a metre in it here or an inch in it there, and all of a sudden he's not out, and he's away and he hits a boundary. So I think there's a bit more pressure on Jake now. There's a bit more expectation because he has started to do something. He's not just playing on potential anymore. It's starting to be like, all right, we want you to be one of our big players. But having said that, he doesn't have to change anything. Got to be careful trying to change too much. If the Renegades want Jake to be that kind of player who's a match winner, and if you can have people around him that can fill in the gaps if he doesn't perform, then he can go out there and do whatever he wants because he can get 100 off 30 balls, and he has done. And he's such an exciting talent that if you put him back in his box a little bit, I'm worried that maybe we don't see the Jake Fraser-McGurk that we want to see.
Yeah, it's an interesting time with the Renegades because you kind of feel that they're thereabouts, but there's so much scope for improvement with them, which makes them, I think, a bit of a scary proposition if they, in fact, get themselves all firing at the same time. The Brisbane Heat, they came from the clouds to beat the Thunder, not in a dissimilar fashion to what the Renegades did. We'll talk to Nathan McSweeney about how he thinks they'll go. How do you think they'll sort of fare in the next few weeks or few games?
I think the Heat are setting up real nice. They've got the luxury of now Michael Nisa coming back in with that experience and what he does by bowling some of the tough overs now allows their other bowlers to go back to playing their roles. Spencer Johnson doesn't have to take the new ball; he can bowl a bit more through the middle. The spinners don't have to bowl such dangerous overs; they can be a bit more attacking rather than defensive if they feel they need to be. So the simple inclusion of one player coming back, I think, changes their dynamic massively, and they can go on to do some pretty special things on top of what their batting lineup is already doing. And I think we're seeing players who know their roles, who have played together now for quite a while, and they know whether to stick or twist in the moment, to knock the singles around, or if they're the one that comes in and takes the game on, a bit like a Maxi Bryant, who is playing beautifully at the moment.
Yeah, he's been amazing. I can't wait to talk to Nathan about what Max is doing because he's been one of the real revelations of the tournament. Going on to the Hurricanes now, I know that we spent a fair bit of time talking about the Hurricanes with Mike Hussey over the last week or so because he's all in on the Hurricanes and what he thinks they could do this year. They're sitting well inside the top 4 now, but it's that they seem to have every box ticked when you look at their team. They've got the great bowlers, the great bowling defenders, and then you've got, from a batting point of view, some real artillery there as well. It just feels like they've got everything they need.
It really does. It feels like they have this squad where everyone knows their role, but each player is filling a spot. They're not just going out and getting big names for the sake of it. Each player has a specific reason in the team.
Yep.
And they're just trying to do that. And then they trust each other to do their role. And I think a team that can be bowled out for 78
down in Geelong.
In Geelong, and then come back and win 4 on the bounce is pretty impressive, and that shows a lot about their squad and how I think Nathan Ellis is gelling that team together. Now he's a captain where you would run through a brick wall for him, basically because he looks like he runs through a brick wall every time he charges in to bowl. He leaves everything out there, and by showing that, all the other players want to be doing that as well. So having that kind of leader, I think, is really important. And then the beauty for Nathan is that he has a team of experience.
Yes.
So if he's in a situation where he's a little bit unsure in terms of a captaincy or who to bowl or what to do, he's got Matty Wade there if he needs him. He's got Chris Jordan, who's played a ridiculous amount of T20s. Ben McDermott, Tim David, who travels the world. Like this squad has so much experience that they're going to be so dangerous, come the back end of this tournament.
It doesn't feel like they've necessarily got the star power of some of the other teams, but as you said, they've got players for specific roles, real clarity of role, and with that experience, it just feels that they make the right decision at the right time. Now, it might not happen that way, but it just feels at the moment they're almost bulletproof. And we've seen that where there have been games where players have missed, whether it be Ellis himself or Wade himself, but they've been able to manage and they've been quite calm in the way that they've gone about it each time.
Yeah, and I think what's most impressive that you sort of touched on there is that it is someone standing up each time, which when you've got an entire squad helping that team get across the line, it's so impressive rather than just relying on one or two blokes.
Yep.
I'm looking at the most wickets list here, and there's not a Hurricanes in the top 10 player. I'm looking at the runs list, and there's only one Hurricane in the top 10. So
which is the one you wouldn't expect.
And that's just a bonus.
Yeah.
So the fact that they're all contributing to wins shows that squad is in a great position and that they trust each other. They've got clear roles that we've spoken about. I think something that I'm really impressed is that they've got their pace as well.
Mm-hmm.
Stanlake and Meredith, they can come in, put pressure on the batters of the opposition and say, hey, we're here for a contest. So no, they are setting up beautifully.
Yeah, it's a bit of a scary thought. Now, the last point on our power play today is the power surge. So it's the unique part about the BBL competition is having this surge, which I think is one of the great components of the entire competition, really, because a game can change so quickly based on 2 overs sort of late in the innings, where you take it, how you cope with it, how you use it as an aggressive thing, but sometimes as a defensive thing as well, potentially. Who do you think is using it the best at this point in the season? Now, I'm talking about potentially individuals, but also teams.
Yeah, I think what the surge has done for T20 cricket is awesome. We don't. It's amazing to think of potential dead overs in T20 cricket being so fast, but now there's excitement throughout the entire innings, and when are they going to take the surge? What's the best time? Should they leave it up to the batters or should they take it at the same time? Every time, and there's so many theories going around it now. I still don't think anyone's clocked it.
Yep.
But what the numbers are showing us is that Hobart and the Sydney Sixers are doing it the best with both bat and ball, and so there's no surprise that they're in the top 3. But having said that, the surge isn't the be all and end all. I don't think for T20 cricket. It's obviously 2 overs out of the 20. If teams look at the surge to be the match winning opportunity, then I think they put too much energy into it.
Yep.
There's still another 18 overs of cricket to be played. And if you look at the Sydney Thunder, they're sitting second, but they're the worst in terms of the surge at the moment. Going at 13s with the ball and and not getting near it with the bat. So it shows that those 2 overs are important if used right, but if used wrong, you've still got another 18 to make it up.
And as you say, it's not like it's a situation where one team is just dominating games because of the surge, because there is so many different ways to use it to your advantage, and sometimes it can be to your disadvantage as well. And we're seeing quite a few examples where teams are going really well, but they're not taking it because they think, well, we're going at 10s or 12s and over at the moment. We don't need to necessarily take the surge. And it's almost like an inconvenience when they have to take it late in the innings. And we see teams that use it at the sort of from the 10th over or the 11th over as a way to try and spark them into life. So that's what I love about it. It can help and it can hinder in all sorts of different ways.
Yeah, absolutely it can. And it feels like the teams, the batting teams where they've got set batters in, that seems to be the best one.
Yeah.
Now, whether it's using it at the 11th over when they've got two set batters coming out of the first 10, or if, like the Renegades, if you're 4 for 10 in chasing, well, then you just wait and hopefully use it at the back end to try and get you over the line at some stage. But the biggest thing that seems to be the consistent theme around the surge is that guys want 2 set batters, and finding a way to do that, whether it is straight away or taking that split second to wait a few overs and then do it at the back end.
I don't know whether it happened by accident or whether it was done totally intentionally, but that other night when we were talking about the Renegades before, the fact that they took the surge in overs 18 and 19, which forced Ashton Turner to bowl their best 2 bowlers in that surge, which left the vulnerability for the last over, I think. And now, again, it might have been totally by accident, but it set it up so well for the Renegades. And that's that whole thing of selecting the right time, because it sort of forces the hand of the opposition to bowl your best bowlers. So having that last over, knowing it was going to be Matt Kelly or Ashton Agar rather than a Richardson or a Berendorf, I think kind of took the pressure off the Renegades a little bit, knowing that what we could do in a last over with wickets in hand.
Yeah, you're spot on with taking the timing is huge. And knowing that all they had to do was get out of the surge, which meant they would get to the last over. That's and something that was potentially against someone who, they could target and maybe get 24 or 25 off if they absolutely needed it. But if they took the surge, a bit earlier and then the best bowler's coming on the last over and they need that 24 or 25, then it's a very, very different game.
Yeah.
So yeah, the smarts around that, whether it was planned or whether it was just a bit of luck, but
they should claim it regardless.
Absolutely, they should claim it.
All right, so that's the power play. Before we go, and as I said, Nathan McSweeney is our special guest. So before we go to a break, I just wanted to talk about the availability of players now as we get into the back end of the home and away season. So I'll do a bit of a list and then you tell me who's going to be advantaged or disadvantaged from it. So at the strikers, Alex Carey will be playing now for the rest of the home and away season. At the Brisbane Heat, Usman Khawaja and Marnus Labuschagne are going to play sort of like one night only at home and I think it's January 16. The Sixers will get Abbott and Smith back for, again, a collection of matches, not just a one-off situation. Sam Constas and Dan Christian are playing for the Thunder. I still can't believe I'm saying that with Dan Christian. Perth Scorchers, Mitchell Marsh will be available for the rest of the season. Jai Richardson will come back for the home and away season. And for the Melbourne Stars, Bo Webster is back for the home and away season. So we are seeing the Australian players play now through this next week and a half, which I think is really exciting for the competition. And then players going out, Hope and Salem Keel will be out from a Hurricanes perspective. The Sixers lose Vince and Hossain. The Thunder are the ones that have been totally ravaged. It's the list as long as my arm. Ferguson, Rutherford, who obviously got the injuries to Sams and Bancroft and Maddinson and Sanger. So two of them, the two Sangers are out. Nathan McAndrew will, I think he would have played last night, so I think he'll come back. There's some massive changes there. The Renegades, they lose Evans from now. Bethel, they'll get 1 or 2 games more from him. Wells is injured. Brown is injured. And the Stars, they'll lose Duckett shortly. McKenzie and Curran are the injured players. So that's a bit of a snapshot. Where do you think we can sort of see teams benefit from what's going to happen from an availability perspective?
Well, I mean, like you said, the Thunder are absolutely riddled there, and they've actually gone and got a 41-year-old
right.
to come in as cover, but they're obviously going to be having a really a tough time to fill that role. But with the Aussie players coming back, I think that the Sixers losing Vincent and Akil are saying they're still going to be covered. So as much as they are big losses, they've still got Steve Smith and Short Abbott to come in and cover them. And we might actually see the Sixers field a team of no international players, just Australian players. If they sort of do a swap there with those 4 players, so that could be pretty impressive for Australian cricket. The Hurricanes, I think, losing Shai Hope and Salem Keel, it's going to hurt them. But sort of what we said earlier is that they haven't been too reliant on them. I think they've been doing roles and they've been playing their part. Mm-hmm. But I think they've got a squad there that they can cover those roles and potentially a few other players stand up as well. So I'm not too worried about their misses. I think the ones that are hurt the most are going to be the Renegades. They're losing Laurie Evans and Jacob Bethel and Wells, who have been very important in the middle, in the middle for their batting lineup, without much cover coming in. In fact, no one coming in. So they're going to have to find something, potentially change their lineup a little bit, potentially move Sutherland up a little bit now, and put more weight on his shoulders. But I think they're the ones that come out of this sort of period with the player movement, in the worst position. Yeah,
and the killer for them has been the injuries to Wells and to Brown. And we don't know the seriousness of the Brown injury, but just looking at those names there, Evans, Bethel, Wells and Brown, that's 4 of your top 6 gone, or 4 of your top 7, depending on where Wells plays in the order. But that's a big loss to them. And look, to be honest, it opens up opportunities for younger players. Harry Dixon, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets his opportunity. Mackenzie Harvey will get another chance. We talked about Jake Fraser McGurk. So it's kind of up to them. They've, a lot of these guys have craved an opportunity or a chance.
Yep.
They're certainly going to get that through the second half of the season. Just on when players come back into a BBL team. So it's great when they come back, but there's also the reality of it disrupting continuity. Players that might have been doing pretty well all of a sudden get told, look, you need to sit down now. The big boys are coming back. How do you manage that? And is there a danger of it actually being a negative, players coming back to play, even if they are high quality?
It can absolutely be a danger when those big players come back to play in the Big Bash, because there's that automatic expectation where I'll put on their shoulders, where the team and everyone watching goes, oh well, they've been playing international cricket, they should come back to domestic land and absolutely tear it up. And I think that expectation can be really hard sometimes on players coming back, and how they deal with it is credit to their character. But also cricket can just kick you around a little bit at times, and this might be a little patch where a big player comes back, but they're just a little bit out of luck, and they don't get the performances on the board. Where if you did have that continuity in that team and everyone playing their role and no one moving around, maybe someone else does a better job. But looking at these Aussie names, they're all pretty good players. They are all pretty good players. So I think if you're in any of those squads, you want them back, and you want them playing for you, because they are going to be exciting, and they are match winners, and they can help a team, even if they're only back for 3 games. If they put one score on the board, or have one game where they take 3 or 4 wickets, then they've done their job for the 3 games. It's not about performing every game. It's just helping out when it is your turn to shine.
Yeah, and I mean the one thing we haven't mentioned in that sort of the the changeover of personnel is the Scorchers. I mean, they're only going to get stronger. You know, Mitch Marsh coming back and playing in the last game. We don't know the situation with Inglis, but he might not be too far away from potentially playing some games as well, but they're not losing anybody. And so while they're not probably playing as well as they were last year or certainly the year before, they're still in the mix with not really any disruption at all to their team.
The Scorchers are the scary team. We've talked about Hurricanes and Sixers and Thunder being at the top, but the Scorchers there's 2 games that they've lost that, have come down to the last ball or second last ball, which they could have easily won, and then all of a sudden they're sitting top of the table. And then, Jai Richardson comes back in and they have the option to drop AJ Ty, who's one of the best Big Bash performers over the years. And they're just like, oh, okay, we don't need you this game, but, be ready for the next. Like that list depth is incredible. So they are sitting in an incredible position that if they do have a couple of injuries that come up, which we've seen do happen, they've got guys waiting and ready to go who have taken hundreds of wickets and made a heap of runs. So yeah, I'm still scared to see what the Scorchers can do when they start getting over the line on those close games.
Yeah, I'm a bit with you. It does feel that way, certainly. So as we're seeing at the moment, the Thunder probably most affected for a variety of different reasons, and certainly the Renegades. So it's a mix of players leaving, but also injuries. But we think the Hurricanes and the Sixers can cover, and the Scorchers really aren't being affected at all, apart from players like Mitchell Marsh and Jai Richardson coming back into the mix. Before we go to Nathan McSweeney, I've got to ask you from your point of view. Now, you've been someone that's been sort of on the bat, or the bat phone's been ringing for you to sort of come and be an emergency player in recent years. Has the phone rung yet? Or do you think you'll get your opportunity to come and play, especially when we have a look at some of the injuries at the Thunder and the Renegades?
Yeah, my number's out there. Saldo knows I'm ready to go, and if needed, I can do that. And Davey at the Thunder, has got my number as well, mate. So if you are listening, flick us a message, ready to go. And I've had my time off now, so it's time to get back into it.
So what are you doing in the backyard, sort of playing all the reverse ramps and all that sort of thing? Have you actually, and it's a serious question, perhaps not so much doing in the backyard, but have you thought to yourself, gee, I better actually get myself ready just in case, based on what's been happening?
I think something we see now in professional cricket, that the fact that it is 12 months a year, you've just always got to be ready. And staying fit, running, going to the gym, but also hitting balls and making sure that even if it is your off time, you can still pick up a bat and be ready to go. If that means you have to have a hit, once a week or once every couple of weeks, just to make sure your eye's still ready, then that's what you do. So I have trained a bit more than I sort of allude to, just to make sure that if anyone does go down or if anything does come up, then yeah, I'm absolutely ready to go out there. You've
done it before. How do you find it when you sort of get parachuted in? Because it's different for you, because you're usually the captain or one of the star players of any team you're in, that all of a sudden you're coming in for the last 3 or 4 games into a totally new environment sometimes.
Yeah, it's actually quite enjoyable. It's quite fun coming in, because I think as a replacement player, the expectation is almost zero. Like, they're not bringing you in to win games. Otherwise, they would have contracted you from the start if they thought that's what you were going to do. You're coming in just to help out, to be a good person around the group, have a bit of fun with the lads, and make sure that you try and do your job as best as possible. But also make sure you help everyone out there and continue on whatever that team philosophy has been throughout the season. So basically just going in eyes wide open and doing whatever the team needs, batting in any situation that they want.
It's the next edition of the Surge. You might be coming in the club polo, and I might be grilling you on your performance as opposed to you grilling everyone else on their performance. You never know. Make sure you have the Big Bash app. This is very important. Download it to catch up on all the highlights and stay up to date with each match as we get into the business end of the tournament. Everything BBL is at your fingertips in one place on the Big Bash app. This is The Surge. We'll take a break. Nathan McSweeney. Can't wait to catch up with Nathan. So much to talk to him about. He'll join us next. And welcome back to The Surge with Adam White and Pete Handscomb. It's time to head north now to Queensland. Brisbane Heat, the defending champions. They had a few wobbles this year, but it looks like they might be back on track after a stunning win the other night. And one of the stars of the Brisbane Heat is Nathan McSweeney, who joins us from Brisbane. Nathan, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys. Looking forward to it.
It's been a crazy old summer for you. Highs, lows, everything in between. How would you describe the last few months?
Yeah, a bit of chaos. Obviously, a very good start to the summer, and probably a dream come true, definitely. And then obviously didn't work out the way I wanted to. And then get back in the Brisbane Heat colours and play really well to start, and then again haven't quite nailed it since. So it's definitely been a summer of ups and downs so far, and hopefully, as you said, we can bounce off that win we had the other night and get the ball rolling again for the Brisbane Heat.
There's so many similarities between you and Pete with the fact that, playing Test cricket and then in the same summer going back and having to play in the BBL. Both of you are such brilliant first-class players to adjust your game to play white ball cricket. When you're chopping and changing, I'll ask you first, Nathan, what's it like? How difficult is it for you?
It probably wasn't a bad thing for me, to be honest. I think, being able to come back and just free me up a little bit was probably a good thing for my batting. In my game in T20 cricket, a lot of it's just revolved around, good cricket shots and taking the odd risk here and there. But my role in the Brisbane Heat is trying to be an anchor kind of role. And it's probably not too dissimilar to some of the strokes I'd play in, the back end of a Shield innings or definitely a one-day innings. So for me, it's probably not a bad thing for my game and something that I'll take note moving forward.
How did you find it, Pete?
Yeah, I found it really tough. I think it's quite hard going from the highs and lows of Test cricket, and then having to come back in and trying to perform straight away. But I think Nathan, you mentioned that freedom that you can get by going back to Big Bash, and almost it's not caring about it, but you can go out there and have a crack, and failing in T20s okay sometimes. So to go back and test your arm out and see what shots you can hit can be quite freeing. So did you change anything technically to go from Test cricket back to T20s? Because I know I've tried to do that sometimes and struggled a little bit with it. So I was just wondering if you changed anything, or if you just backed yourself like you sort of said.
Yeah, I try and stay away from changing anything. Especially with my grip, I like knowing where my bat face is, and I don't like tinkering with that. Some guys do. So, I just probably played a few more shots and was able to get away with it. And I nailed it when I first came back, but had a lean couple of scores. So, I guess it's the game that when you think you've got it nailed, it always shoots you down. And there's areas that there's always continue to work on and areas of focus.
So I'm just interested in that, like going back and playing that first game was well documented. And I must confess, I was sitting watching on the couch thinking, how good is this, considering the disappointment of losing your place in the Test team, the character, the resolve to be able to do what you did first up. Take us back to that night and what it was like and just that, I guess, that feeling of going back and playing, massive television audience, knowing what had gone on for the last week or so to perform the way you did.
Yeah, it was it was a weird feeling, obviously. I think for me, it's a great place to be after some bad news. I think my family's up there. A lot of my good mates are from Brisbane. So to be able to share some time with them, also just get back out in the cricket field, something I love doing, and not sitting in a hotel room just feeling sorry for myself. So I think that was actually a good thing. To able to, make some runs and win the game, was a definite bonus. And it was probably an important thing for me looking back on it now, that I definitely needed to get back out there and play cricket and spend some time around some friends and family.
Did it rock your confidence, what had happened, or is it just part of your journey?
Oh, I think it definitely takes a hit for sure. Your confidence. It's never a nice phone call, but I guess like Pete and like a lot of other guys that played for Australia, it's never smooth sailing, and there's a lot of people that have been left out before and come back and been really successful. So hopefully I'm one of them, and I can get back in the nets and learn from my experiences and really bounce back and shield cricket this year and going forward.
How did you find it in your situation, Pete? And similar to Nathan, burst onto the scene, get your opportunity, then you're told you can't play for Australia anymore, but we want you to go back and play in the BBL.
Yeah, again, it's tough to do it, but I think credit to Nathan and I think the mindset that he's taken there, going back and seeing it as a positive opportunity to go back and prove yourself again that you are good enough. Not only proving it to the selectors and the country, because now everyone's watching you, your name is under lights, but also just proving it to yourself that you are still good enough to play this game, and it can rock your confidence and it can be really, really tough. But yeah, sometimes you need those knocks to just make yourself feel good again and trust yourself. And then it all just starts to feel good again. And it's a tough game, cricket. You go through those lows, but the more lows you go through, the closer you are to actually scoring those runs again. So, it'd be great for Nate to hopefully have another opportunity in Sri Lanka, and learning, I think, the confidence that you've taken from being in the setup to being out to back in, that's going to help you go forward in a big way.
So, Nathan, I just want to go back to that whole thing which Pete talked about you, when you go back, but it's a different version of the game, which is not something that necessarily becomes as natural to. It's not like they're asking you to go back and play shield cricket and spend 4 hours in the middle, which is something you do so well, where you've got to, I would imagine you've got to really understand your own game and not sort of step outside your own game when you go back, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think so. And for me, playing those tests, I was, wanting to make sure I performed the way I was trying to perform in shield cricket and didn't want to be something I wasn't. And I was content with that. And I said that at the start, if we get an opportunity, I'm going to play the way I've been playing. If it doesn't quite work out, I can live with that. So I think, it's the same when you get dropped is, what did I do that got me there? What did I learn? And just try and, keep solving problems is what batting is a lot of the time, and bounce back really strongly.
The bounce back's been great, mate. Coming back to the Brisbane Heat, you sort of mentioned it before about your role and how you play your T20 cricket. Looking at your team, you look like one of the controllers in the team. I think Matty Renshaw's been doing a great job as a controller as well, and Pearson at the start of the Big Bash season. Is that something you guys have been talking about, and then filling it in with guys like Maxi Bryant who can clear the pickets from ball one, or is this just something that's happened naturally?
Yeah, I think it's something that happened naturally. We speak about, the guy coming in, taking the pressure off the guy, that's batting at the time. And in T20 cricket, often when someone gets out that's, been batting for a long time, the whole momentum swings. But if the new guy can come out and continue the momentum and put pressure on the bowlers, it allows the guy down the other end who's in just to keep, working away and chipping away at a score. So, probably my style of game is suited to that. And I guess, the coach and strategy team has probably identified that. And, I've been lucky enough to have, as you said, Matty Renshaw come in this year, and he's striking it beautifully, as well as Max Bryant. So we haven't quite clicked yet, but we're still, sitting mid-table, and hopefully we can, our best is to come and really finish off the season strongly.
So when you're talking about that new batter coming in, is that have they got basically full license to move around and do whatever they need to do to keep the scoreboard ticking over? There's no negative feeling if they come in, try and hit the first ball for a boundary and get out. It's more positive.
Yeah, definitely. And I think there is options. There's some options that are better than others. But if you're, committed and you take a risk and you get out early in your innings, I think, as you said earlier, getting out in T20 cricket sometimes isn't as bad as it is getting out in Shield cricket. So, they're doing the team thing, and if that means they, get out early and miss out, for the risk of the team, then everyone's happy with that.
It's almost the opposite to Shield cricket, where it's about consolidation period and all that sorts of things. It's almost the total opposite, where the existing batsman needs to sort of settle down a little bit as opposed to the new batsman.
Yeah. It's an interesting way to look at it, and something that sort of sounds a bit new to me, but I'm enjoying that. Take the pressure off the in batter rather than taking the pressure off the guy that's just come in. That's nice. Is that maybe, Nate, something that's come from Johan Botha as a new coach this year, or has this been something that's been developing with the Brisbane Heat now over a few years that you've been playing really good cricket?
Yeah, it's probably an emphasis probably this year, to be honest, and Ross Taylor as well is big on it, our new batting coach. So, I think, it just, whatever you can do to make sure the guy that's in is the guy that's batting there in the 15th over when the game needs to be won, rather than having two new guys trying to solve it when the game's on the line. It's often a great challenge. So, I think Johan and Ross Taylor has definitely identified that's an area that we need to focus on. And, as I said, we probably haven't quite nailed it yet, but, a couple of games to go, and hopefully we can.
Talk to us about Max Bryant, because I find him a fascinating cricketer. We've seen him at the top of the order absolutely smash it and then just get out. And you think, oh, what are you doing, Max? Now it's sort of a slightly changed role in the middle order, and it's Max 2.0. It's totally different, but it's still got the same exciting and damaging components of Max 1.0.
Yeah, I guess, Maxie played a lot of cricket when he was young. I think, when he was open the batting for the Brisbane Heat, he was 18, 19. And I think he's just matured a bit. He's obviously got a greater understanding of his game. Batting in a really difficult spot in the middle order in T20 cricket, it's not easy by any means. So, as you said, he's bettered himself, greatly from the last couple of years, and hopefully he continues to do that and plays important roles for us at the Brisbane Heat.
Now, I want to ask both of you about Xavier Bartlett, because you both face him in Shield cricket, and Nathan, you're obviously a teammate of him at the Brisbane Heat. How good could this guy be? Because it feels like he's one of the stars of the BBL with ball in hand. Particularly, obviously, he's winning games for Brisbane Heat, but just even looking at higher honours as what's possible with Xavier on a consistent basis. We've seen a sample for Australia, but I'll start with you, Pete, because you're with me. What you experienced in the Shield game, and then what you've seen in the BBL this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, Xavier had my number in the Shield cricket there for a few innings, and bowling fast, outswing. It's impressive. It's fun to watch. It's exciting, and while the ball's moving and seaming around, it's really, really hard to face. I ended up having a chat actually with Xavier after the Shield game in the MCG, after a few beers. So the conversation was flowing a bit easier. But I think one of the most impressive things that came from him was his still want to learn. Like, he was someone that had got me out, I think 3 out of the 4 times we'd played, or at least twice. And he was asking me, what he needs to do better. What ball I found most difficult, what ball I found easiest to face, and was there anything he could change? So, Nath, I don't know if he takes that into the Big Bash as well with the Heat, if he's constantly asking you guys, or if it looks like he is looking to learn, at every opportunity. Yeah,
he's definitely eager to learn. He's one of the guys that just does everything he possibly can to try and get better. And he's had a poor run with injury, early on in his career. Now he's strung a few seasons together, especially for the Brisbane Heat, and he's been incredible. As Pete said, he swings the ball at good pace and continues to take wickets in the power play for us, which is just massive for us in T20 cricket. So, and he's been awesome in Shield cricket. I think I've got out to him 3 out of 4 times as well. I've played him. So, he's a great guy as well. Great guy to have in your team. And yeah, his want to learn and work hard is impressive.
With Michael Neser missing, it's almost been that he's become the leader of the attack. As you said, he gets wickets in the power play, but he bowls important overs late. But again, just watching from the outside, it feels like he really thrives on that extra responsibility.
Yeah, I think Ness has probably been in the Queensland squad ever since Xav was a rookie contracted player. So Ness has probably had a massive impact on Xavier's career. And there's no surprises that I guess he bats a little bit. He's a decent catcher. He's a good catcher, and he's a very good new ball bowler. And he's definitely Ness's understudy. And those guys talk a lot off the field and definitely at the top of the market in trainings.
I want to ask you about what it's like coming back and playing for Brisbane with your former teammates. Now you're entrenched at South Australia as the captain. Is it weird coming back? Is it refreshing? Is it comfortable coming back? What's it like to go and play with some of your old teammates at the Gabba where you've played so much cricket yourself?
Yeah, it's definitely refreshing. Moving to Adelaide is awesome for me, and wouldn't change it for the world. But to get to come home over the Christmas period with where my mum and dad's still living, and it's a good feeling, and it breaks up the season nicely for me. There's not too many jabs going around now. There was last year, but touch wood, the Saka guys have had a good start, so there's no sledging going on at the moment. But it's definitely refreshing, and I love being able to obviously spend my time in South Australia and then in Queensland over the Christmas period.
One of the toughest things in cricket at the moment, and you're finding more and more of this, is there aren't any breaks in the season, and having that sort of mental refresh can be really tough. You can play 12 months a year now, so it must be. Do you find it almost a bit of a reset,
a circuit breaker almost?
Exactly, for your mind and your mental well-being, to then be able to. I know Adelaide's your new home, but then leave home again to go and perform with South Australia.
Yeah, definitely. I think new voices as well, new coaches. It's just everything about it's just new and refreshing. So, and I haven't done it, I guess, for the seasons on end like you have, Pete, but I can see how it can get, tiring at times. Cricket's a game where if it's not going your way, it actually can be quite challenging, as we all know. So it's been definitely refreshing, and I couldn't have it. I'm very lucky to be able to have best of both worlds at the moment.
I wonder, Pete, whether this is going to be a problem, particularly for the teams in New South Wales and the teams in Victoria, to retain their players. And I'm talking about New South Wales and Victoria because there's two teams, to get people back to their home states, because you've experienced it playing in the Hurricanes, that from what I'm hearing, more and more players are enjoying the fact that halfway through a really grueling Shield season, they can almost have it's almost like a mini holiday where they can go and play somewhere else for 6 weeks in a totally different environment, as Nathan said, with different coaches, different players, to give them that refresh before they go back into that state system in the second half of the year.
You're spot on there. I think being able to have those conversations with just a new brain to pick, whether they give you something that's good or something that's bad, you've learned either a way to do it or a way not to do it. So you just developing your game by going out and getting more voices. There is still something to be said for having that continuity of voice as well, and not getting too much information. So I think finding that balance is tough. And then also those with families versus those without. Families like to try and stay home, and those without tend to enjoy the holiday away with others and use that as a freshen up. So there's definitely an appeal to go out and leave and get that mental refreshness. But personally, I think I'd like to stay home now.
Well, you're an old man now. You're not one of the young ones. That's exactly right. A couple more, Nathan, before we let you go. I'm interested in that. We've talked about Xavier Bartlett, Michael Neser, and the fast bowling battery. But the two spinners you've got, two high quality spinners in Kuhnemann and Swepson. We had Matty Kuhnemann in here talking about his craft earlier on in the season, but the luxury of having two quality spinners that bowl differently, and it can be tough at the Gabba bowling spin on a ground that is so short straight.
Yeah, it's definitely had their challenges this year. I think the wicket we've seen at the Gabba is probably more conducive to seam bowling.
Yep.
But yeah, they've been instrumental in the last 2 years of getting us to a final and winning one. You know, I think we played two knockout games at the SCG. One was a semi-final, one was a final. So and they were massive. So yeah, we're very lucky to have two world-class spinners who are great guys and definitely drive the energy in the group also. So yeah, it's been challenging this year with, as you said, the short straight boundaries and the Gabba being probably more of a seamer-friendly T20 surface, but they're skillful enough to find a way and work it out, I'm sure.
What do you think is possible for the team this year? As you said earlier, you're kind of in the middle, but you've got the confidence of knowing what you can do over the last a couple of years when it comes to the business end of the season. How do you feel you're faring, and what needs to improve to propel yourselves back into finals calculations?
Yeah, I think we can still win it for sure. But yeah, as I said earlier, we haven't played our best by any means, and our batting in the top order hasn't quite fired yet. So hopefully, us in the top three can really get the team off to a good start the last three games, and our bowlers are excellent and have been for the last 3 years. So I'm sure if we get a big enough score on the board, we'll be very hard to beat. So plenty of work to do for us top three, and hopefully we can get it done.
And Nathan, we started the conversation talking about the disappointment of being dropped from the Test team after the start of the summer and having to go back and play in the BBL. We've got to finish with a positive story because you're back in the Test squad for Sri Lanka, which means you can't play in a final series for the Heat because you'll be off in Dubai and then off to Sri Lanka. The satisfying nature of still being seen as being part of the future of the Test team. How did that make you feel when you got the phone call?
Yeah, it's awesome. Very lucky and very, very happy, I guess. I think, when you get dropped, you're always wondering where I sit. Have they seen enough? Have they written me off? All your mind goes in weird places. So it's nice to know that I'm still thereabouts. And obviously, got plenty to learn from my last series and experience in the Australian team. And I loved every minute of it. So it's definitely a team that when you get picked for, I'm super chuffed and can't wait for it. So, I'm really looking forward to it.
Now, the good news is there's no Bumrah. He's not there. The bad news is you're going to have about 55 spinners to deal with on massive turning wickets. Is that a daunting proposition for you? Is it something that you're excited by? Because it's going to be totally different.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to it. Both that Jasper's not going to be there and a new challenge with the spin. So I guess I love watching Test cricket, and especially Test cricket in the subcontinent. I think that's some of the best viewing for us cricket lovers. So I've seen, it happened plenty of times. I've been to India a couple of times on academy tours, but to actually experience, an international, level of cricket and spinners will be a challenge, no doubt, and one I'm really looking forward to.
Well, maybe just Mitch and Matty can bowl a few more balls to you in the nets while you're still at the Brisbane Heat before you head off overseas. Thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Good luck for your remaining games with the Heat. You're always such a fun team to watch. Hopefully you can just get a few more wins to get yourself back inside the top four.
Cheers. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
And Nathan McSweeney joining us there on the surge. And it is great to see Nathan. He hasn't had to go back and get runs at Shield level to prove he's good enough. It shows the Australian selectors have got a lot of faith in him being a long-term player for Australia.
Yeah, spot on. And I think that's a really big credit to the selectors there backing Nathan in again, showing that they're not just judging him on the 3 games, they're judging him on everything that he's done throughout his career to date. What he can do against spin and learn that, I think is going to be really, really impressive.
Yeah, and it's a real credit to him, the way that he responded from that dropping, the way that he played for Brisbane initially, the fact that he was happy to get out there and, talk to the media, be very honest in how he was feeling about things. I think he won a lot of fans just in the way he conducted himself as much as anything.
Yeah, and that shows an experience on his shoulders. That shows someone who's mentally strong, able to deal with highs and lows of cricket, and someone who can have a long career there. Because when you show that kind of strength, that mental aptitude, it's impressive. And the way he's come back is special, and wish him all the best for Sri Lanka.
Nathan McSweeney, our special guest, and Pete Handscomb, our special co-host on the latest edition of The Surge. So thank you for joining us. Make sure that you stay in touch with us right throughout the course of the BBL season as it heats up and we get closer to crowning the champions. The Big Bash app, that's what you need. We'll catch you next time.